Hey guys, Nightcaster here. So, I'm going to revisit the stat card, okay? I know there's a lot of confusion about what the stat card really means, but it's not what a lot of people think, okay? So, one of the things that when you're looking at the stat card, you have to consider is two important attributes. That is max speed and at height. These two things are very important because they are really the crux of the entire stat card. What do these two stats really mean? Okay, so max speed is not an indicated airspeed. It is a true airspeed that is the value of the plane's best speed for that aircraft. But it also includes the altitude that the stat card is attributing. So, what I'm trying to say is that the 2290 kilometers an hour is only capable at 12,192 meters on this Phantom. So, you may be saying, well, what does that really mean? It means a lot of different things. And it is, especially for the F4C Phantom, you have to think that how long does it really take me to get up to that true airspeed? So that's a very important consideration. What is also a consideration is the turn time. The turn time is based on the altitude of 12,192 meters. So the 26 seconds may take you that long at 12,000 meters, but it may not take you that long at 2,000 meters. So you have to consider the altitude for when you're considering these other stats. 172 meters a second is considering if you could ever get up to that speed of 2290, that you should be able to climb sustained at 172 meters a second. Now, in War Thunder, it's very problematic to even get to 2290. The 2290 is the fastest speed you can attain in the F4C, and that is going to take forever to get there. Okay, even if you're sitting there at 12,000 meters a second and you're just running the line vertically, or not vertically, but horizontally without any elevation, you're not going to get to the 2290 before you reach the edge of the map. So theoretically, you're never really going to attain the 2290, and that means you're never going to theoretically attain 172 meters a second. It's just not going to happen. Realistically, you're looking at 80, 90 meters a second from most combat altitudes. And what I mean by combat altitude is you're talking about anywhere from 0 to 10,000 meters. You're really not going to see much more than that. And so these stat cards are very deceiving. I mean, yes, these planes are capable of this, but the way that War Thunder is designed, you're never going to see it. So keep it in mind. Consider this a part 2 to my original stat card discussion that we had, and regarding how those are calculated. This is going to be, stat card 2.0 on steroids. And what we can do is we can do a test flight, and we can even try to simulate these problems and these issues to kind of demonstrate that you're never going to really see that. So, without further ado, here we go. One of the things I'm going to do is to kind of like show you is on the right hand side of the screen we're going to mimic the local host. Now, local host is going to determine the actual climb rate and our true airspeed. So there's going to be no question about exactly how fast we're going and how high we are climbing. Okay, looks like we're on White Wilkes Island. I don't remember how long it takes to get to the edge of the map. So we're going to just try to go as far as we can. And once we get to the edge, we'll try to reverse course. The best way to approach this is to actually go to the corners, because you have more room diagonally than you do horizontally or vertically on the map. So if you look at it this way to this way is a lot longer than this way to this way or this way to this way. So we're going to try to give us as much room as possible to get up to speed as fast as possible. As you can see on the deck, we're usually about 1,300 to 1,400 meters a second, or kilometers a second, excuse me. On the lower half of the 1,300 is usually the mark here. And we're only 292 meters high off the deck. But if we look at our indicated airspeed, or compared to true airspeed, it's not going to be much different. We're only even though we're 300 meters off the ground, we're only around 20 kilometers an hour faster, which is not a whole lot. So what we should do is actually try to climb to that 12,000 rate. I'm going to climb pretty steep because I have a feeling we're going to reach the edge of the map fairly quick. And I want to get as much height as we can before that happens. And here's part of it. So I'm going to do a full 90 degrees here just so that we can gain the most altitude during this respawn. That actually happened a lot quicker than I had hoped. So now I'm going to try and regain some altitude. We'll just do a small 10-degree climb. We need to reach that 12,000 mark as soon as possible. Notice that even though our airspeed indicated is starting to slow, we are actually reaching Mach fairly quickly, and we've already surpassed it. If you look at the local host, not only are we over 50% higher than our indicated airspeed, but we are really increasing our Mach as we go up. Now our vertical climb is decreasing significantly. And that is something we really need to test. Is War Thunder actually lying to us when we look at these stat cards? It's possible. Early indications of this climb rate determine that that could be a very good possibility. Now we're up to about 10,000 meters. I'm going to start leveling off a little bit just so that we can start gaining some speed. We should be reaching toward the edge of the map. Nope. Actually, it looks like we're just about where we started. So we should have a little bit of time before we get to the edge. I'm gonna climb a little bit higher again, probably to 10 degrees we were before, to try and get to that 12,000 mark. And once we get to that part, we should be able to see our indicated airspeed be much, much different than our true airspeed. Looking at our true airspeed indicator shows that we are almost double of what our indicated airspeed is. So we are really gaining altitude here. And we should be coming on the edge of the map soon. So I'm going to do another climb to try and gain some of that altitude. I want to at least reach 12,000 so that when we actually get there, we can kind of level off and or dive down so we can reach altitude with some decent speed. Alright, here we are. We are perfectly in line for 12,000. And we're gaining some speed. I'm going to try and line the pepper up so that we're not losing any altitude now. And we can kind of compare the true airspeed with the indicated airspeed. As you can see, pretty much for every 1 that we're gaining on indicated, we are actually gaining 2 on the true airspeed. We can kind of guess at this point that for every indicated, we're getting double the true. So we need roughly 1,100 kilometers per hour to reach the stack card. Unfortunately, going at these speeds, we are going to rapidly surpass the edges of the map. And that is the problem we're going to have with trying to test a scenario such as this. We're coming up on 1,000 indicated, which means a roughly 2,000 indicated. And we are not slowing down. I mean, we're slowing down a little bit, but we're not really slowing down a lot. So I could see how, given the amount of time, we could potentially reach the speeds that are indicated on the stat card. Now, the problem is that in War Thunder and in combat in general, you're never really going to have that ability to sustain a straight line long enough to reach these speeds. So they're a little bit deceiving. All right, we at least reached Mach 2.02 before we reached the edge of the battlefield. Now that's going to be really important because, at least gives us a little bit of confidence that the stat cards themselves are somewhat reliable, right? Now I'm trying to wonder whether or not the climb rate is sustainable based on what they were saying. And I don't really see it at this point. I'm looking to see where, at what rate, at 12,000 meters can we actually gain 172 meters a second, or roughly, I think that's about what it was. And I just don't see how that's possible. I do not see. I mean, we can probably zoom climb at that rate, but we're going to lose a ton of speed. So the stat card seems to be a little bit deceiving. I have never found a situation where the sustained climb rate of this plane has met the actual stat card without losing speed. Sure, you can zoom climb hundreds of meters a second if you really wanted to, but what is the max sustainable climb? I honestly don't think it's reflected in the stat card. Now we are pretty much to space at this point. I think 17,000 meters translates to what? Approximately 3.2 feet per meter. So we're talking about 55,000, almost 60,000 feet. That is pretty insane. Now the one thing I've never really tried is to see how high I could get in one of these supersonic planes. The Phantom may not be the most suited for this. Perhaps the MiG-19, since it has a higher climb rate, at least according to the stats, and seems to do better at high altitude, could be more suited for this role. But we'll see. I'll try to get as high as I can at least. And we're coming back right across the spawn point. Indicated airspeed shows 1950 and dropping. It was much, much higher before. I bet you it was probably more in toward the stat card in that regard, but the climb rate was certainly not reflective. Now we're having a little bit of trouble just climbing at this point. Trying to go as high as possible here. Without losing too much speed. 18,000. I could try to push it a little higher, but I don't really know if that's possible. Grab a little bit more left with some combat flaps. Try to get some landing flaps in there for even more, but plane's really shuddering here. So now that we've gotten this high, I'm gonna try and dive a little bit, probably down to about 16,000, and then try to level off as much as possible to see if our true airspeed is faster than the indicated stat card. And And as you can see, this true airspeed is still significantly lower, 1550. So we'll try to go to about the 12.5 range for speed, altitude, which is what was indicated on the stat card. Not quite where we were looking, but it's close. And you can see that we're approaching 2,000 and climbing. Level flight certainly seems to indicate that the stat card is at least close to correct if you're using true airspeed. As far as climb rate, not so sure. Does not seem to indicate what we previously thought, that the climb rate would be indicative of the altitude and of the plane at the time. Perhaps if you were able to maintain that speed and a slight angle, you might be able to climb at 172 or so meters per second. But as far as War Thunder testing is concerned, we just will not be able to mimic that since the distances are too short before reaching the edges of the map. Right now we're just under 2,000, and I did a slight dive to get to this position. And it looks like we are holding at, I wouldn't say holding, but we're running roughly 2260. $22.72. It's, we're still roughly climbing here and there. We are losing fuel, so perhaps that is a consideration. So 2290 does seem to be a true indicator for how fast this plane will go at the 12,000 meter height. Now, will we rate of climb be 120 or 172 meters a second? I don't really think so. I have not seen anything to indicate anywhere in the climb that 172 meters a second is attainable, even at this altitude. Sure, in a zoom climb you can reach that, but you can do that in just about any climb if you went vertical. So I would hope that this rate of climb indicator is a sustainable rate at that perceived snapshot in time. Meaning, yeah, 172 meters a second may not be attainable throughout the whole climb, but at least at some point in the climb, the sustainability of the climb would be about 172 meters a second. Well, that's it for me today. This is more on stat cards and what they can mean. I haven't even gotten into the turn time. That could be a different topic entirely. So we'll revisit this at another point. But right now, as far as the F4C Phantom, This turn time, or at least rate of climb, is not indicative of exactly how fast I think it can climb. We may have to do some further tests to determine if this is true at lower altitudes, but from all the other planes I've seen, this number is indicated by this max speed and at this height. So that's it for me. If you have any questions or concerns about methodology, maybe you have some insight on how this rate of climb is attained, we'd like to do some scientific evidence, or at least testing based on scientific evidence rather than anecdotal, to determine how this number is attained. Thank you for watching. I know this was a long video, but we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.